good Tuesday evening to you out there. It was a hot one up here. I'm sure it was a hot one wherever you guys are at. And welcome into another episode of the Barky Brown Show. I'm Jacob. That's Nick. Mr. Casey Kinnaman with his full chub. Down below, we are brought to you as always by our friends over at Homage Apparel. I felt appropriate to wear the David Njoku Angry Runs.
Ooh.
So we got everything. So we got Muni, we got the Municipal Stadium, we got the Brownie the Elf, the classic Brownie the Elf, we got the Angry Runs. Go check our friends out at Homage Apparel right now, right away. Hey, if you're watching us live on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, thank you so much for joining us. But also go to the YouTube, which youtube.com/@thebarkingbrowns and sub to the YouTube. Give this thing a thumbs up. Gentlemen,
it would mean an awful lot to us. I'm fantastic. I saw Nick Chubb smiling yesterday, and he was wearing none other than the hat we just gave away because y'all are so supportive. So thank you for that. Happy Nick Chubb is happy Nick Carnes. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, man. Seeing Nick Chubb smile did my soul a lot of good. You know what I mean? And we can read into it all we want. He's back, baby. You know, comeback player of the year. Engage. You know, and we're going to talk about running backs tonight, so shit's going to get off the rail because I'm going to be irrational.
Okay. Well, I didn't know. We didn't discuss that in the pregame, so holy shit. Let's get started, guys. Just a thing before Nick tries to steal it. You know, the most valuable thing you can give somebody is some of your time. So you guys continuously give some of your time to us, and we really appreciate that. All right, so we've got some coordinator banter. We kind of led up to this on Sunday's episode when we were breaking down the film of Miles Harden. If you missed any of that series, which wraps up this week with Juwan Briggs, if you go to our YouTube, at the very bottom of the YouTube page, there is a playlist pinned there with all 5 of the draft picks that we've done so far for that series. That'll wrap up this week at some point. So we had some coordinator banter last Thursday when the media was present. Watson threw in front of the media for the first time. There was all of that stuff. But I thought some of the stuff that, Dorsey said some important stuff. But I thought that what Bubba Ventrone and Jim Schwartz said was even more interesting. Last Wednesday, I was on Sports for CLE, and I told Dave Bacon, hey, this is the stuff I kind of look forward to in OTAs is some of the things we hear from these coordinators, because I don't think it's as much coach speak as it is during the season. It's still a lot of coach speak, and they still aren't going to give you a ton of information, but you get them in a kind of a candid light. And we'll start with Jim Schwartz, because I think that was really important that, it's like essentially, hey, Jim, what the hell happened in Houston? Like he was asked questions like that, and questions about, hey, what's going on the road, and why was it so different in these situations, and why were, veteran quarterbacks and good offensive coordinators able to scheme up what you guys do so well at times. And so he was asked about some of that in an interesting quote that kind of came at it, and he made a kind of an interesting point. He's like, I'm going to use a bunch of baseball analogies right now. So so anyway, the question was, how much have you noticed a carryover? How much have you noticed an ease coming into picking things up and being able to maybe being able to get maybe a faster start in the offseason program? And I think something he said is something I think that. So I think what that affords us is the ability to work on more change-ups. Like, we're a fastball team, right? We do what we do, and we try to do it really, really well. But there were some things that we sort of held back last year, just from a standpoint that we sort of triaged and said, okay, what can we reasonably expect to get good at and master in one off season? So we sort of had to pick and choose, but that now gives us a little bit of time, because we don't have to work on the fastball. We can add pitches, and you guys will get tired of my baseball analogies, but really that's what it is. Mm-hmm. And it made sense. They were really good at man coverage and pressuring the quarterback and being aggressive. Mm-hmm. That's what they did. They didn't do much else out of there. They were terrible in man coverage. I'm sorry, terrible in zone coverage when they tried to do those things. And you've got to be able to throw in some wrinkles there. And, some of their zone coverage was fine, but, like, I didn't think they were really great in cover 3. Like, and, like, you got to be at least okay at that area.
And they were really bad at, like, the Baltimore Ravens are so good at disguising what coverage they're in. And just adding that half second of confusion. And I just remember the game against the Rams. Matt Stafford knew exactly what the Browns were doing. He took one look at the defense and diagnosed it. They were really, really poor at disguising what they were doing or just adding any second of hesitation. And so I think, first of all, those comments from Jim Schwartz are great because I think
what you want to hear.
Some of the biggest concerns were like, okay, are you going to be rigid here and just unwilling to change from because obviously Jim Schwartz defenses do the aggressiveness and do the pressuring the quarterback and all of that well, right? That's no secret, but it's like, can you go beyond that? And I think personally, I'm learning the true, like I've always underestimated the transition that it takes to go from one coordinator to another. And so, I mean, Jim's basically telling you, like, we could not do everything in one off season. And so I guess in retrospect, I'm really pleased overall. Like whenever your defense gives up the least yards per game in the NFL, that's significant to me. So for them to be able to establish that foundation is good. But the Stefanski said it and Schwartz said it. They're obviously not satisfied, and that's music to my ears.
There were so many things coming from last offseason where we didn't know because we thought Schwartz was going to bring some of the concepts we saw in Tennessee on the back end. But to a point, I think that like Schwartz has always been a man-heavy cover one type guy. I think he fell in love with the personnel. I don't think he's ever had corners who could play this level of man. So it was just like all in on that. But yeah, you need to see cover 3, cover 6. You need to see those switch ups. At the next point, you got to do a better job disguising. Make it look like cover 3, then go to your man. You know, like there's a lot of wrinkles they could add. But I'll say this. A lot of teams are going to have trouble hitting that fucking fastball.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You can still throw the fastball 70% of the time and be okay.
They're going to. I think you don't get out of characteristic for who you are, but at the same time, when you play these veteran quarterbacks, when you play a Matt Stafford, you saw what happened. Like he was able to, even Russell Wilson to a degree. I know we clown on Russell a lot, but like they kind of had us. You know what I mean? There were things they were able to diagnose and kind of figure out what they had to do to counteract, and we didn't really have a pivot. We didn't have a counterpunch to them. But another thing we don't really talk about is like, yes, the defense was a different animal on the road than they are at home. The offense wasn't good on the road either. You know, and there's going to be times where this offense is going to have to do some heavy lifting. The defense can't be expected to do it every time. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's a lot easier when you're playing with the lead to go hunt, to go play that aggressive style, as opposed to when you're down 14. You know what I mean? So
you look at some of those games where Joe Flacco was moving the ball. I mean, the thing that I go and I look at is look at the Jets game. Look at the way that game starts when they're just slinging it all over the field. Njoku was dominating the first quarter. You know, that defense, they were hunting.
When the second you score 17 points in that game, you know the Jets are done. There's nothing they could do. The defense isn't giving that up. You know what I mean? After you go out. So it's about getting off to a fast start and playing to your strengths. Just think what this defense is going to be capable of if you take a 10-point lead into a fourth quarter.
A double-digit lead in the fourth quarter in the offense doesn't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
That would be just – I mean, you look at some of these numbers, like Warren Sharp puts out a lot of, like, number-based stuff at this time of year. It's really interesting. They were, like, the third worst team, like, in terms of drives ending in a punt or a turnover. the Browns were at the bottom with the most. Like
Yeah.
not the very, very bottom, but they were like third worst or something like that. And that just tells you how dominant. Like, one thing I did want to say about some of the road struggles of the defense with the numbers is I don't think it's all encompassing. I don't think the defense was as bad as the numbers say on the road in terms of points scored, because you have to think about how many short fields on turnovers that they had where it was like it was already 3 points by the time
They took the field.
by the time they were on the field, it was 3 points, right then and there. They were already in the red zone or whatever, and some of that. So I think some of that skews a little bit of the data, and I think that's important. But like, yeah, man, like if you took this team and you started having confusing coverages added to what they were last year, man, like this is what you wanted to hear. And a lot of that went on, and he said he would go on to say that, what was the issue in Houston? We were chasing plays. We were trying to make plays. We were trying to take what wasn't there. We weren't just playing our brand of football. They were looking for, he admitted it. They were looking to bait the quarterback. They were trying to pick CJ Stroud off. They wanted to attack a rookie quarterback. And instead of playing their game, I don't know if it was like, hey, we got a big head because we already beat their ass, even though I know CJ wasn't there, but it had just happened in their house. And so we were coming there for round 2 and that sort of thing. But if you can add more diverse coverage schemes and layer those things in on the back end, what are you going to do? What are 90% of the league? What is 90% of the league going to do is my point.
2 things. The Guardians were down 5-0. Tyler Freeman just hit a 2-run dinger to tie it. So it is 5-5 right now against the Royals. And
but that one guy on Twitter told me they're a bad team.
Well.
That must be true then.
He waited 3 weeks to go at him, and Roger have been going at it. He's a Twins fan.
Quite a clash going on right now between the first and second teams in the AL Central. So love that for them. But second thing, I don't know if you guys know Ian Hartitz. I'm sorry. I apologize if I mispronounce the name. But he went back to 2008 and posted a stat today of the Browns' regular season point differential by year. From 2000, so I'm not sure about before 2008, but from 2008 to 2022, the Browns were negative in point differential every season. 2023 was the first time since I'm not sure when, but certainly in over a decade, that the Browns were finally positive. They were plus 34 in the point differential. And we're talking like at worst was 2009 at minus 130. That's something. Oh, sorry, I lied. 2016. Okay, that makes sense. 2016 was minus 188. We have multiple seasons in the minus 100 point differential. But so my point is, the Browns finally. It's a bit. There's probably no worse run and I would imagine there's no worse run in NFL history. But the point is, you led the league in turnovers and you still finished positive in point differential. You got to play damn good defense overall to give yourself that be on the plus side of that fence. So I get it. Right. People point out the Houston game all the time. People point out the road struggles and all of that makes sense. I have been going back and just watching like the 15-minute YouTube clips from the Browns games. And there are like, I don't know why. I just like kind of put it out of my brain how many times they turn the ball over. And just handed teams.
It's because they won 11 games. You can you can gloss over some of those things.
Like in Chicago, the Browns punt the ball back to Chicago, and they Chicago muffs the punt. Yeah. And gives the ball to the Browns on like the 17. The next play, Joe Flacco throws an interception, immediately turns it right back over to the Bears. And like there's just so many comical situations that happen, and you just watch them back and you're just like, how did the Browns win this game, right? Because they just give the ball away like candy. So my point is, I think if you reduce your turnovers, you will see a much more dominant version of the defense. The defense has flaws. I'm not saying it doesn't, but just keeping the ball more puts you at such a farther advantage. Like every stat historically would tell you that if you're leading the league in turnovers, you should be losing. And the Browns are finding ways to win anyway. And I think it speaks to the talent that they have assembled and what they've built and what they're building.
I just wanted to touch on what MC said there. Don't underestimate what Vrabel brings. Schwartz brought that up a little bit later. Also, Vrabel out there running scout team linebacker last week in some clips. That dude could still play. Like, he could still go out there and get like 5 or 6 tackles. Like, I feel pretty good about him, like, rolling out there, probably catching a touchdown. What he had, like 16 catches for 16 touchdowns or so. At some point like that, it was like some stupid asinine number like that. Schwartz even brought that up. And, you know, Casey, you brought this up, talking about some of the back end stuff that they did in Tennessee that we thought they might bring. Ooh, this year would be a good year for that, wouldn't it? Because now you got Schwartz, now you got the master of it in Mike Vrabel there with you all up. Could you imagine what I'm not even talking about any of the position coaches. And I like a lot of their position coaches. I'm just talking about Schwartz and Vrabel in a room all off season, just being like, well, you know what? What if? and it's just like, and because like, is this secondary? Let me ask you this, Casey. Is this secondary talent-wise better than a lot of Vrabel's Tennessee defenses?
Without question. They didn't have 3 cover corners.
Well, that's my point. It's like, okay.
And don't underestimate getting a healthy Juan Thornhill, because when you're disguising coverage, your free post safety has to roll a ton.
Yes.
And has to recover on the back end. And I think if he's healthy, I think it allows you to do more. I'm interested, like you just said, though, Vrabel and Schwartz in a war room watching all this last year's game film, pointing out, you know, what could you have done here? What adjustment could have been made, you know?
Turnovers should go down with less starting quarterbacks.
It should, you know. But the turnovers are the most indicative stat of wins and losses. And like you said, you lead the league in turnovers, still win 11 games. You know, water finds its level. This team is talented. That's what that tells you, you know.
Well, and
it's literally ridiculous is all I'm saying.
I'd like to touch on Vrabel real quick because I posted this thought on Twitter the other day. There was a very long stretch of Browns history where Mike Vrabel would have been the best coach the Browns had since they returned to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And you have risen to a point where Mike thinks so much of the Browns and what they could offer him for his next career opportunity that he's willing to come on in an advisory role, right? To help him springboard elsewhere.
And I saw a lot of people kind of bring this up, Nick, to piggyback off of what you said, but like a lot of people were like, I didn't necessarily know how engaged he would be, how much, like what exactly would he be doing? He's coaching. Like,
hell yeah.
I see one OTAs with him out there running around, and to me that means how much, like, will he be out there on the field, whatever, during game day? I don't know, but that means he's not just a guy that calls in once a week from California. That's a shot at Paul DePodesta in the early years.
Well,
and you understand his next opportunity is around the corner, and for him to stay engaged with the game, stay on the cutting edge. And I think the most valuable part for Vrabel, he gets to do the coaching stuff, but it's what he's going to learn on the back end with Andrew Berry and personnel, because that's what went south in Tennessee. From the second they traded A.J. Brown, like, you know what I mean? Like that thing just spiraled. Yep, he was pissed. But him learning the personnel side of Berry on top of staying on the cutting edge and getting coached. But I think this is being overlooked. The defense's ability to talk shit, learning from Vrabel. I think it's going to pay off dividends. He's one of the best shit talkers. No one talk, even as a coach, he would shit talk his own team. You know what I mean? Those meeting rooms are volatile.
Yeah.
You could hear Will Compton talk about it. But so I think that'll just give that defense even more of an edge than they already had, and they played cocky last year. Just being around Vrabes, that's going to rub off, man. I'm looking forward to the attitude they bring on Sundays.
So let's shift. We spent more time on this than I really wanted to, but let's shift over to Bubba Ventrone. I thought some of the things that Bubba said was very interesting. He kind of like, they asked him about some of the new kickoffs, what's it going to look like, and that sort of thing. And he was like, I don't know. Like, he was very candid in the fact that he's like, I'm still feeling it out. I'm still figuring it out. And they're like, well, have you watched XFL film? He's like, yeah, of course. I've seen it in action, but until I'm there in person seeing it in action, there's still going to be some, and they don't have pads on. So that's like a big deal. You know what I mean? That's a big part of it.
Even when they do, it's hard to live rep that.
Yeah.
When I played college, man, that is a hard thing to do. And you get in trouble if you go too hard on scout team in that situation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because like you're practicing a kick return. You don't want to blow out your star wide receiver's knee. Like, especially in college where the best athlete, it's always the best athletes back there. It's not just a returner. It's like a lot of times it's the guy and you don't want to blow his knee out. So yeah, you're right. That makes a ton of sense. But, one thing he did say that really caught my eye was like, you're going to be surprised. He said, it's a trial and error process throughout this, trying to figure this out. But he mentioned high-profile names, not just in Cleveland, but around the league, that you could see some high-profile names back there. He didn't give any names. He didn't give any ideas, but you can tell that he and likely other people have looked at this and been like, this can affect games this year. I think it's going to affect games this year. You could see some places like, could we see Tyreek Hill return a kick?
Let's speculate. Let's throw out some names of guys that you think have a shot to actually return kicks this year. Tyreek Hill should be at the top of the list.
Right. He's done it. He's housed a punt before. I've seen it. I think that's
before he was paid though.
Yeah, absolutely. But the point is, in a big moment, I'm not saying like he would do it all the time, but in a big moment, would you put Tyreek Hill back there? Like, I would ask him at least, like in a big, things like that. I think Bubba threw that out there, and that felt like it was almost like an afterthought. Like, people didn't really latch onto it very well. And maybe I'm overreacting and I'm blowing this out of proportion, but he brought that stuff up, in the fact that, like, and we'll get to a kicking situation that happened in Kansas City and it's not about what you think it's about, but a thing they were practicing that could mean even more crazy chaos. But like, I'm trying to think, as the Browns, like, we talked about it last year with Jerome Ford when he became running back 2 before Nick Chubb's injury. We're like, we don't want to put him back there because he's got a big role on the offense. Sure. So maybe you bring someone else in. You try to, and of course Jakeem Grant gets hurt, but you try to get Jakeem Grant back there and stuff. And it's like Nyheim Hines, if Nick Chubb starts on the pup, Nyheim Hines, even when he's not, I think he's going to have a role. You're still putting him back there. I think that if you've got a guy that you think is dynamic in the open, I think you could see Jerry Jeudy back there.
I was about to say, damn you. I should have just said it.
I'm so glad because
I'm looking. Jeudy, man.
Returning?
I'm not. My point. That's not my point. My point is someone that's dynamic with the ball in their hands in the open field.
Okay, sure.
Rather they have experience with it or not. I mean, they just paid him, and then right after that, Ventrone says that, and so I'm like racking my brain because you're not putting Amari back. I love Amari, but he's not a return style player.
No.
You can see Elijah Moore back there. He fielded some punts last year.
Yeah, I think
Elijah Moore's another one. Hines is he's the obvious.
I think you could see it go all kinds of different places, especially in big moments. Like here's when
I'm Dallas. I'm putting Deron Bland back there.
Wow.
Yeah, because every time the dude gets his hands on the ball, he takes it to the house. Yeah,
I would do that.
I just like how I feel like the Browns. I just feel like the Browns have been ahead of the curve on this stuff, right? Like if you said to me, you could have Nyheim Hines, you could have Cordero Patterson, you could have Tariq Cohen. I would want Nyheim Hines, and it's no disrespect to Patterson. He's just up older now, right? So it's like the Browns signed Hines, and there was some questions at the time about like the running back room or that kind of thing. And it's like he's very clearly here to be this return guy because they even before these kickoff rules have changed, like the Browns showed you they valued the return game with Jakeem Grant. It didn't work, right? But they
Jakeem Grant, James Prochet. I mean, they did multiple people.
Yeah,
Darden's still on the squad.
Yeah, Jalen Darden.
So I just love that it's clear that there's maybe Ventrone and Barry are talking about this stuff. And I'm assuming they are, and it's clear they prioritized it. And I love that. I think it's going to be far more edges to be gained from this new return stuff, especially this year. Is this new, right? There's going to be some adjustment, right? It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. I can't. I'm so excited that they're going to have this dynamic guy in the backfield. And yeah, maybe they'll use Judy. I don't know. Maybe.
James Thrash.
Okay, I'm in.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm in.
I can see Thrash doing it.
He could?
Yes, I do.
He returned kicks at Georgia State.
Yes, he did.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did.
I should know that. I don't know that.
Sometimes it's hard with those smaller schools to know everything that goes on.
That's a really spicy piece of information.
But yeah, the MC says maybe a small guy that can hide behind the bigger guys until he finds a seam. You know, you can see things like that's what Darren Sproles did. Dude, I love Darren Sproles, but like that dude would like hide and then he'd see the seam and then he'd just be gone.
You boys are a little young to remember a returner by the name of Gerald Ice Cube McNeil. That's what he was in the late 80s teams, like 86, 87, 88. He was the punt returner. He made a Pro Bowl for the Browns. But Ice Cube McNeil, that was he was a little dude. Name was Ice Cube.
I figure. Go ahead.
I'm just saying it's been a while now, but a big part of the Chicago Bears' last Super Bowl run was Devin Hester returning kicks for them. Their offense was not great.
That was their best offense.
Rex Grossman was not leading sexy offense.
No.
Devin Hester gave them that boost that they needed. Man, I'm telling you, I think that this really is going to change the landscape of the NFL. Because we've seen it. We saw what Josh Cribbs did here. Right, and we saw Devin Hester in Chicago. I remember Percy Harvin in the dynamic, and I feel like it's been long enough that people have kind of forgotten about like what it's like to have like really meaningful returns. Right.
I think it's funny that I can remember several games in which Rex Grossman completed more passes to the other team than his own. The year they went to the Super Bowl,
they'd still win.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Hey man, Grossman. There was never a throw that dude didn't like. He was like, "Let's do it." Yeah, of course, gotta give some love to Eric Metcalf, of course, absolutely.
Yeah, nasty, absolutely nasty.
So we'll transition to just a little bit more special teams talk. Kansas City has been talking about and practicing Justin Reed, the safety, doing kickoffs because the kicker is one of the only people on the field that can move before the ball is kicked. So you're talking about the guy that would have the most momentum and the only head start to get down the field is going to be the guy that kicks it. So Bubba Ventrone talked about getting his kickers out there doing defensive back drills to tackle. He brought up that, and I don't love that idea, but I get it. But hey, that's part of what happened to Dustin Hopkins last year. But so Kansas City's kind of putting this idea out there of like, they're kicking it off with, and Justin Reed can kick. Let's be clear. The dude can kick.
Yeah.
But you're having a safety out there go out and kick because he can make the play, make the tackle, make the special teams. And I was reminded that the person that kicked when both Corey Bajorquez and Dustin Hopkins went down was DeAnthony Bell, who plays a ton of special teams already, is already going to be out there on the field. So are you behind this idea that Kansas City kind of threw out there? Because I think it makes a ton of sense.
Anytime there's a new rule set, you have to try to game those rules. You have to try to bend it to your benefit as much as possible, however you do that. This is one way that can happen. If you have a skill player that can also kick, and can be physical. If it's a DB, even better, especially if it's a strong safety like Bell, who has a nose for the football. But it's also not like his kicks were amazing. Yes, he did do it. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't something we're going to look fondly on. But, now that this rule's been changed, if that was even an option, they should have been someone in his ear like, all right, man, I'm going to need you to go out there and shag 50 balls a day. And just,
Yeah.
And then you let it sort out during training camp. But I think that you got to explore all avenues, right? Like if you can give yourself a competitive advantage in any play, if you don't do it, you're cheating yourself.
No, Mitch, I think it's actually the other way around. Sorry. This new kickoff rule is not going to make impossible for returns to happen. It's going to be the other way around.
Yeah. Yes.
It's going to matter. It's going to open things back up. But yeah, like my thing is like with like even Dan, can you just kick it to the 10? Would you be okay with that? Like if a guy can kick it off to the 10, the way the new rules are in place, would that be okay? Because I'm not even asking for a dude that can touch back it. I'm asking for a dude that can get it deep enough and make a play. And I think
that sweet spot, the 5-yard line, if you can kick between the 10 and the 5. And
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was just curious if that was kind of your guys' overall thought on that too.
Yeah, if you can improve field position, but at the same time, like you're allowed to have 2 returners back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2. We're going to see laterals. We're going to see rugby plays, man. We're going to see some shenanigans, dude. It's going to make it exciting, dude. I'm excited for it.
You know how it's going to happen too. Like at first, people are going to be like, they're going to do like a little bit of tomfoolery, and then one team's going to go out there and do something just bananas, and it's going to
work.
Like
the Globetrotters, man.
And then everybody's going to do it. They're like, oh, did you say? It's just like the Wildcat. People had done Wildcat plays before, but Miami came out and won games.
Yeah, Ronnie Brown and Ricky.
Just won games with him, and then everybody was like,
the Patriots.
Oh, yeah. They beat good teams.
I could see like Mike McDaniel. So the Dolphins just drafted Jalen Wright and Malik Washington. Like they've got all this speed.
Dude, they got A-Chain too, man.
Right.
Like they got dumb speed.
Just or like. Like the Chiefs, man, like they've got Xavier Worthy now. I don't know if they would use a first-round pick back there, but I'm just saying, like, one of these coaches that's like known for this sexy offense is just going to get spicy with the return game, and it's just gonna take over. I feel like it's just going to spread to the rest of and
Kansas City also went and got a rugby star out of Wales. Luis Rees-Zammit, dude. I'm telling you right now that this is what he's built for. This exact scenario. Line breaks in rugby, dude. But here's the thing, too, is there's going to be trick plays that you keep in your bag because fourth quarters of important games in December, you know what I mean? This could be a deciding factor. Now, I don't want to get crazy either. Like in an average NFL season, you only usually get 2 to 3 kickoff return touchdowns in a season.
Yeah, sure.
I think you might see 5 or 6. It isn't going to be this unbelievable thing, but
it'll probably double though. Like it'll still.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
more.
Well, in the grand scheme, it's not massively significant. Yeah. Then like there's going to be this massive outpouring of scores that come out of it. But if you're one of those teams who gets 2 of them, you're going to feel like this was a good move.
But even if it just changes, like let's say, how about something pretty minor? Let's say instead of starting at the 20, you get a return and you start at like the 35. Right,
yeah.
like that 15 yards is a huge difference.
Yeah,
right. Like,
it doesn't even have to be touchdowns. You're right. It could just be field position.
Yeah.
It matters.
And then you also might get to the point where we see a team that is so dominant at it that they just see touchbacks all year.
Oh yeah.
They're just like, I'm not even risking it. This team's might be Miami. Now that we're talking about all that speed.
Yeah.
Okay. We're all hot and bothered talking about coordinators.
This is exciting.
You started it.
This is sexy.
You started it.
Are we even going to talk about the running back room? I might have to cut some of this stuff from the show. One small note. DeJuan Jones was on the field today, participating in drills, moving dummies, and he looked fine, and that is significant.
I'd love to see it.
That's what he does in the regular season. He moves dummies.
Yeah, like that one dude that kicks a lot. Anyway, TJ Watt reference. We hit that point. Moving on. I did start this, didn't I?
Nothing
Also,
I'm not used to.
Yeah.
Some jet orbit motion. Well, yeah, we're going to see some motion.
We've seen a little bit in the preseason last year with Elijah Moore, where they really dummied it down. The stuff you're seeing with Thrash coming cross formation, doing a reverse orbit to where he goes around the quarterback and then back to the flats. Just that window dressing that you see out of Miami. We see out of these teams that are, that are more innovative as far as moving east to west. Like when we talk about Puka Nakua's season, and it was historic, and that dude was in motion like 80% of the time.
Yeah,
that dude got some miles in every game. So if you can just, and I don't know why, but the Browns were, I forget the number, it was 27th in the league in motion, something like that last year.
Sounds right.
And I was worried because Dorsey was barely above that. They might have been like 24th or something.
Yeah, I think it was something.
I was worried that we wouldn't see that motion. And I think to be an innovative offense in the league now, you got to throw so many different looks at these defenses, man. Make them handle
throw
more.
So many looks at you.
Exactly. And we saw it last year with us. So it just you got to start that uptick. So I'm glad to see them, using it more already.
Absolutely.
I just think from offense and from defense, they're telling you what we were doing last year is not good enough. We need to adapt. We need to add. We need to change. And that is everything that I like. If you just told me that right out of OTAs, I'd be happy. I don't need to see an ounce of one clip, right? I just need to know that they are going to focus on continuing this evolution and to improve. Because if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
Yeah, and I think that's just in general with the coaching staff, because Stefanski could have easily said, what I do is good enough.
Right.
And he didn't. He retooled his entire staff.
Yeah.
This guy's coming off a coach of the year. He could have easily rested on what his accomplishments already were and say, don't worry, we got this status quo, and just move forward. But they didn't, because like you said, they believe in that building. There's so much more room to grow. They were an 11-win team who could have been a lot better. So what do, man? You turn over every stone, man. And that's what you need to do in this league, because they will catch up to you. Defensive coordinators, what they do over the course of a year. If you, like CJ Stroud had a pretty good rookie year, man. A lot of people want to call it historic. That's a little much. But it was very, very good. He's definitely a quarterback who's ascending. He's going to see shit he ain't never seen because of what he did last year. They're going to try to take away anything they can. So just that's the mentality, is break your own tendencies before they're broken for you.
All right. Let's talk about running backs. Let's talk about running backs. All right. So last week we talked about one of the, I don't know, because corner's pretty close, but maybe one of the deepest rooms on the team, and certainly one of the better groups in all the NFL when we talked about the edge room. The running back room's a little bit different in the sense that you've got the best runner in the NFL in my mind when healthy, but we don't really know what's going on. I was telling you guys with his health right now, we'll know as we get closer to the season, but Pete Smith over at the OBR was talking about it. He was like, yeah, they're giving us some images of him smiling and standing there and looking healthy. He's not doing anything, but it felt like a tease. And I was like, yeah, it does. Because like we were even, the three of us were like, oh yeah, it makes us happy. Like we saw that Nick Chubb was laughing at Jameis Winston, which is what we all do because Jameis is a goddamn national treasure. And we must protect him at all fucking costs. But anyway, he was like, I love Jameis Winston, man. I'm unapologetically a Jameis Winston stan for now. But if he's out there, if he's healthy, I don't think it's week one. I think there's a chance. There are a lot of people out there that are saying there's no chance, and I don't believe that because people want to talk about Adrian Peterson and what he did, and he tore his ACL in week 16 and came back. And I'm not saying Chubb's injury, I think, was a little bit more significant. So, like, a little bit worse. Like, you know, but it was also like 3 months earlier in the year that it happened. I think there's a chance he's in week 1. I realistically think it's probably somewhere in October that we see him. I think he misses the first 4 or 5 games, maybe something like that. So it's really hard to kind of peg this running back room. But even without Nick Chubb, I think for those 3 guys behind him, Ford, Hines, and Foreman, I think they all kind of do something a little bit unique. Mm-hmm. And when put together, it's not a bad group, the 3 of them put together. And then you get to add Nick Chubb at some point. So, I mean, I'll pass it off to you guys to kind of start talking about the running back room. But, like, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction to say if Chubb's out there that this is about if Chubb's out, this is a bad group, because I don't think so. I don't think it's a top 10 group, but it's not a bottom 10 group either.
Yeah, I think it's better than average. I think even without Nick Chubb, this is a better than average. Look around the league, man. I mean, Nyheim Hines is a third down back.
Great.
Foreman's a hammer. Ford can do a little bit of everything. Strong has some game-breaking ability. I like this Aiden Robbins kid. I think he could be a horse. You know, I mean, obviously time will tell, but all things considered, this running back room after we lost Chubb is in a better spot this year than it was last year. And that's with swapping Hunt out for Foreman. And that's not a knock on Hunt. I love Kareem Hunt. It's just where he was at in his career versus where Foreman is in his career. Plus what Nyheim can give you as that third down back, a guy you can put in the slot, the guy that you can move around as your gadget guy. I see this being a more dangerous room this year, even if Nick Chubb's not there. To your point, though, Nick Chubb is physically going to be ready. Yes. They're going to have to save him from himself, though.
Oh, probably.
Because, you know what I mean? It's not even because he'll get the joint, but it's all the supporting stuff. It's all the other muscles you don't think about that you don't use until you're in a contact situation. You got to ease him back into that. And the way the schedule plays out, I think he'd be ready to go probably week 4. But then you're going on that road trip. Do you do that to him, or do you wait till you come home for that 3-game stand against the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Chargers? You know, and then he has a bye on the other side of that.
Games. When you're talking about the 2 divisional games and another AFC opponent, when you're talking about playoff seeding, playoff pushing, some of those tiebreakers and things like that, that's probably the best time to bring him out.
There's a few stats I think about here. I shared one, I think, a couple days ago that people really picked up and ran with. But only Christian McCaffrey had more receiving touchdowns than Jerome Ford did among running backs last year. And Casey, I know you've highlighted Ford's receiving ability, and I feel like it's a very underrated piece to what the rushing attack was really struggled once the offensive line went down, and Nick Chubb did too. That's no secret. But Ford still found ways to produce and contribute and add to at least give you something when the running attack wasn't working. And that's important to me because you definitely you need somebody that can be that receiving threat. And maybe Hines too, right? All of a sudden it's like you say, you got 2 backs that you think could reliably be receiving threats. And I don't think Ford is a terrible rusher. His vision is suspect at times, but he does break tackles. He finds ways to be elusive and it's clear that Browns trust him.
If there is a seam in front of him, he can hit it. He can hit it quickly, and he's got more top end speed than you think he does.
Right. I think about that Indy game where he just hit the hole and he just broke away. It was real early in the game, and it was like Ford for 7, easy peasy. And the other thing that's really that sticks out to me is the last time Deuce Staley and Deontay Foreman were paired with each other, he almost had 1,000 yards. Yep. Right? Like Foreman isn't a super sexy name, and I get that, but he's proven that he can be a productive back. And I think with a healthy offensive line, the one thing Kevin Stefanski's offenses, and I know we're going to be changing here, but I still expect them. They've always been good at rushing the ball when you actually have offensive tackles that aren't 4 and 5 or however many that they lost last year. So I still think that the Browns are going to be an effective rushing team, and we've seen both Ford and Foreman be productive in their respective. It's like you broke up the running back room into different skill sets because Nick Chubb does mostly everything, and nobody's going to be Nick Chubb. That's okay. That's no disrespect to them, but it's like Foreman does something well. Ford does something well. Nyheim Hines does something well. There's a lot to like, and I think that the combination of the three of them makes for a productive running back room until Chubb comes back.
Yeah. I'm looking at him somewhere in like the late teens, early 20s, somewhere in there is probably the group without Nick Chubb. You can get everything you need from a running back when you piece it together with him. You can get the short yardage stuff. You can get the gadgety stuff, like you guys said. You can get the I love what you said, Casey. And what I think about when I think about Hines as the receiver is that 2020, 2021 Kareem Hunt. Like in those two, especially the 2020 successful year, they were putting him out wide in the slot. He was running jet motion. They were handing it like that stuff that Kareem like really excelled at those specific years, especially 2020. I think that's what Hines does. And then Foreman comes in for the short yardage portion of what Hunt did. But you get that 2020 Hunt between those two players put together. And then, of course, you're not getting Nick Chubb out of Jerome Ford. But with all of that stuff put together, it's a pretty decent complement to a passing offense if your passing offense can be what they should be.
When we start talking about the passing offense, if you look at because when I look at the running backs in the passing game, Ford is an outlet option. He's not out there routing people up, but he knows how to find that soft spot, and he's really good about turning north with the ball in his hands. Hines is a route runner. Hines will do those Texas angle routes, swings, wheels, you know what I mean? And he's competent down the field. So you have different components in that. But then I start thinking about, let's just live in the world where Nick Chubb is 95% of what Nick Chubb is.
Okay.
I like that.
And then what happens? Then what happens on third down with Hines? Then what you can do with a change up with Deontay Foreman on the goal line.
In the fourth quarter when Foreman's only touched the balls like 8 times because Chubb went,
Exactly, man. It just then all of a sudden that, what might have been the 15th to 17th ranked running back room is top 3 right off rip.
Yeah.
If he's 95%, yes. 4th and 1 Winston and at quarterback. I don't hate that either. Because he'll probably fake spike it and throw a touchdown just to piss somebody off.
You know what?
God, I love that dude.
Based off what we saw out of Ford last year, like whenever Nick Chubb comes back, right? Like Chubb and Ford are a great combination in themselves, right? Like Ford. I get it, right? I agree with you, Casey, that like Ford might not be the huge route runner, but he certainly found ways. I was watching that Jets game the other day, and it's like Joe Flacco scrambling for his life because they can't block anybody. Mm-hmm. And Ford finds the little open space and houses it. Man, bails him out. Like there's a lot to like there. I really think that this could be the year where we say, hey, the Browns found a contributor in Ford in the 5th round. Like that's another nice Andrew Berry pick. Like that is certainly among the range of outcomes here. And man, Hines was a lot of fun for both the Colts and the Bills before he tore his ACL. And he's had the whole year off. It's not like fresh. Like he tore it before the season last year. So he should be 100%, I'm assuming, this year. And man, so I went to Indianapolis last year with the group of 10 that I always go with. And it's the same people I play fantasy football with. For whatever reason, that Deontay Foreman scored 4 touchdowns last year. He scored 3 touchdowns that day against me. And I'll never forget that. Foreman, you get him near the goal line, man, he is going to get in there. He's going to get in there. Yeah.
He's the hammer, man. And we that's exactly what Hunt was for us last year.
Yep.
So you got younger.
I think he's younger and fresher.
Yeah. And like you said, man, like when we're talking about Hines too, I'm kind of perplexed that he wasn't able to go in camp, because that happened in the middle of summer last year.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an ancillary role. He's not going to be a workhorse. You need 9 to 15 snaps a game, and then you get that same thing, that same dynamic out of Foreman. I would expect to see Ford more between the 20s. He might be a 17 to 20 carry guy early in the year. You supplement him with those two, but then when Chubb comes back, the dynamic switches, and everyone's just going to be fresher. It's dangerous, man.
You've only got 550 attempts in Foreman's career. 552 attempts. 200 of them came in 2022 when he rushed for 914 yards, as you said, with Deuce Staley. So while I don't think that, like, MC brings up a point, he says Ford's good out of the backfield, but he doesn't worry a defense. Well, that's okay.
Yeah, he's an outlet guy. He's not going to like route someone up, but he finds the spots, man. He makes it easy on his quarterback.
Well, if it's 2nd and 11 and you dump it to him for 5 yards, it's 3rd and 6. I like that a lot better than
Me too.
Than 3rd and 11 or whatever it might be if you don't have a safe outlet valve. The thing about Ford is you talk about he finds that area, right? He finds it, he settles in it. Go look at that play where Joe Flacco got smacked in the face and it was a touchdown, because that is textbook what you're describing about Ford's ability out of the backfield.
Come to the ball, baby. Make yourself available.
Go watch it on the All-22. He works his way back to Joe Flacco. He didn't just stand there the whole time. He sees Flacco start to, and he's like, turns around, does all this stuff, and then Flacco somehow finds him because it was a magical run. But, like, he's a safety blanket. I mean, you talk about that with some of my favorite tight ends. Like, Jason Witten was so good at that. Like, Witten was so good at everything else. Don't get me wrong. But with Jason Witten and Travis Kelce always knows where Patrick Mahomes is going to want him to be.
Yeah. He never runs the route.
No. And there's never a problem.
He goes to the spot.
Yep. Yeah.
There's nobody over there. I'm going to go over there. Oh, Patrick's rolling this way. Maybe I'll go over there. I mean, I'm not saying Jerome Ford's Travis Kelce, but I'm saying is he gives you a safe and easy option when there's nothing else.
Yep.
He's quarterback friendly.
He is very.
That's probably the best way to put it.
Right. And you know what? You brought up Pierre Strong real quick. You know what? He had a couple really nice runs. He couldn't hold on to the ball, right? But when he did hold on to the ball, he had a couple nice runs.
Contact balance is bullshit.
Well. We'll see. I'm curious to see how the running back room shakes out, because I think we can. So yeah, just for funsies, let's say that Chubb starts on PUP, right? Let's say that we're accurate and he doesn't play for the first 4 weeks. Okay, so then your running back room is going to be Ford, Foreman, Hines, right? Are you keeping a 4th running back? Is Strong making the team? Is Aiden Robbins making the team? Or are you just rolling with those 3?
If it's the PUP, then I'm rolling with 4.
Okay.
Okay. See, I knew we were going to kind of have this question, this discussion. I figured like somebody would ask it. I kind of wonder if that's what happens if there's a 4th, but it's Giovanni Ricci as a fullback. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Give me Aiden Robbins as the fullback.
6'2", 200.
Dude.
He's a bowling ball, man. Like
I just think Deuce is going to love that dude.
Yeah, I mean,
and then when you're watching him run drills, one of those dudes ain't like the others.
It's
like,
true.
That dude is big. Like.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to be very interested too. I could get behind that, especially because I feel like Robbins is going to be a guy that gets a lot of opportunities in the preseason. Like, we've talked about that in previous episodes of guys in a situation, in a room where they're going to get a lot of reps to prove themselves. He's one of them. And, if he goes out there and look, okay. All right. So now you got me thinking.
Here we go.
All right.
And I'm thinking about Robbins in front of Foreman on the goal line.
Dude,
Because you could give it to Robbins. You could just do a fullback dive.
Yep.
Or you could just let him and Foreman behind him. Okay. All right. I'm coming around.
We're talking all this shit, and it's going to be John Kelly. Watch.
No, the unkillable John
Find you
Kelly,
someone that loves you as much as the Browns love John Kelly.
the immortal. More power to him. This has been a very sexy episode of the Barking Brown Show. I think it's really hitting. Which, by the way, I'm right on cue. Class A just closed it out. They were down 5-0. They scored 8 straight runs. Kansas City scored none. 8-5 is your final. It's a 5-game lead in the AL Central. I love me some baseball.
Oh yeah, but they're the worst team in baseball.
Oh yeah. But I just think the deeper we dive into this, the more obvious it is like what the Browns have built, and it's just I can't get enough. I don't think any of us can get enough. So
Because we said through 16 and 17. You know what I mean? Like we deserve this.
Hell yeah.
We deserve this roster full of talent.
Yes.
Every position you got a dude. You know what I mean? Like it's
Next
we deserve
week.
this, man. As Browns fans, you deserve this era right now to where you're relevant, to where you have studs everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Listen.
And join us next week with super special guest in Paying Up.
Oh, baby.
Is one Andrew Manchin next week.
Cannot wait. Grab your popcorn. Listen, multiple hundreds of you watched a review of 7th round pick Miles Harden. Y'all are crazy, and we love you. And the sub count keeps going up. The view counts keep going up. The listener counts keep going up. Your Amazon Prime could go up to subscribe on Twitch if you want to. We love you. Thank you for all the support. This has been a running back review, special teams talk, sexy Barking Browns show. Nick, he's Jacob. That's Casey. Go Browns.
Da 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 da.